Once he ruled the streets of Chicago, money, power, fear, everything was within his reach. For years, Al Capone built one of the most powerful criminal empires in American history. But even the most powerful men eventually fall. And for Capone, that fall ended on a lonely island prison known as Alcatraz. Al Capone was born in 1899 in Brooklyn, New York, to Italian immigrant parents. As a young man, he quickly became involved with street gangs, learning the brutal rules of organized crime. In the 1920s, during Prohibition, Capone moved to Chicago, a city filled with opportunity for those willing to break the law. Alcohol was illegal, but demand was higher than ever. Capone built a massive empire through bootlegging, gambling, and protection rackets. At the height of his power, he controlled thousands of men and millions of dollars. To many, he was the undisputed king of Chicago's underworld. But his empire was built on violence, corruption, and fear. And sooner or later, the law would catch up. In 1931, Capone was finally arrested, not for murder, not for gang violence, but for tax evasion. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison. At first, Capone served his time in Atlanta, where he still managed to maintain influence. But the authorities had had enough. In 1934, Capone was transferred to the newly opened and highly secure prison of Alcatraz, an isolated island fortress in the cold waters of San Francisco Bay, a place designed to break the most powerful criminals. Inside Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, things were very different. Capone was no longer the boss. The power, influence, and fear he once commanded in Chicago meant nothing inside these walls. Here, every prisoner followed the same strict routine. The rules were simple, and they applied to everyone. No special treatment, no private deals, no power, no influence. Each day began early. Capone lived in a small, simple cell. For a man who once lived in luxury, the simplicity was striking. Like every other inmate, Capone was assigned prison work. There were no exceptions. The work was repetitive and exhausting, carried out under strict supervision. Hour after hour, day after day, the routine rarely changed. Life inside the prison was quiet, controlled, and predictable. Inside Alcatraz, reputation meant nothing. Every prisoner was simply another number. For a man who once controlled an entire city, this was a completely different life. The king of Chicago had become just another prisoner. Inside Alcatraz, power no longer belonged to the criminals. It belonged to the prison. But prison life was not the only thing changing. Capone's health was rapidly deteriorating. For years, he had suffered from untreated syphilis, a disease that slowly damaged both his body and mind. Inside Alcatraz, the effects became impossible to ignore. He grew weaker, more confused. Sometimes he struggled to concentrate or even recognize people. The once powerful gangster who had terrified an entire city was slowly fading away. By the late 1930s, Capone was no longer considered dangerous. He was simply a sick man. In 1939, Al Capone was released from prison due to his declining health. But the man who left prison was no longer the feared crime boss of Chicago. He spent his final years living quietly in Florida, far removed from the world he once dominated. In 1947, Al Capone died at the age of 48. His story remains one of the most famous rises and falls in criminal history, from the king of Chicago to a prisoner on a lonely island. A reminder that power, no matter how great, never lasts forever. Subscribe for more elite hidden escapes out.